no matter what. Okay? Atlanta's not the issue. The issue is we're trying to get the StreamYard working here. You just got to change the cover picture there. That's all. The icon picture. So there we go. See where that's good enough. See, now people can hear us on the stream. We are live on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. Just a little bit different look because, right now we're doing 20 different things over here. Mike Gill's trying to save the world. I'm trying to save the world. We're all trying to do different things. And it's only one studio for those just to pull you behind the curtain a little bit. So, all right. So we got the audio up now. We're all good on the StreamYard, Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter if you want to watch the show. But as I was saying before, this game is going to lay out whoever wins this game, in my opinion, is going to have an ability to dictate the rest of the series. An even matchup to the odds makers. And the odds makers typically know something if we don't know something, okay? I'm not saying they know everything. Obviously, anyone who's listened to me long enough knows I have ripped the odds makers from their lines except for UFC and MMA fights. But basketball is a traditional sport. They have analytics for it. They have an idea what's going on. For them to say is an even series going to Atlanta, it should tell you that the Sixers can definitely not just win this game, but win the series. But they have to come out the way they did in Game 2 and avoid the pitfalls of Game 1. The Sixers had 9 turnovers in the first quarter of Game 1. They had 9 turnovers for the entire game for Game 2. So you go from one quarter where you were just an absolute dumpster fire to another game where you were straight up, you were there. It worked. I think that tells you something. It tells you that the Sixers know how to beat this team. It's about execution. I heard nobody complain about Doc Rivers after Game 2. Nobody said Doc Rivers was stupid. He had a bad game plan. He didn't know what he was doing. You know why? Because you only blame the coach when they lose. You forget that the players are on the court and not the coach. The players executed correctly in Game 2. They couldn't get the job done in Game 1. If the Sixers go out there and have, again, almost half the turnovers, total turnovers in Game 2 were Hawks 18, Sixers 9. So if you can replicate that formula again, you can go out there and put the defensive pressure on. You can limit Trae Young. You can beat this team. It's doable. It's not beyond the idea of it working. It's just up to the Sixers to actually get the job done. I believe they can get it done. I just don't know what it's going to look like because, again, you're in Atlanta. It's a road game. The one playoff game you've lost so far this postseason was also a road game. Now, Joel Embiid got injured in that game, and the circumstances were obviously different. I still don't believe that the Sixers are the road team they used to be. This isn't under Brett Brown where they had a losing record almost every year on the road. I think they're better than that now. I think that they're more mature. I think they're more focused. And I think that the rest of Doc Rivers' coaching staff is going to have an impact on these 2 games in Atlanta. I don't think Doc Rivers hired Dave Yeager to be the offensive coordinator, Sam Cassell to be a mentor for the guys, and Dan Burke to be a defensive coordinator if he didn't believe in his coaches. These are 3 of the best basketball minds in the league, and he has them on his coaching staff. And Doc Rivers kind of functions like a head coach directing traffic. I think there's something to be said for that. And I think that if the Sixers listen to their coaches, they execute well on the floor, they win this game tonight. And we'll have more coverage coming up with Kevin McCormick at 6:20. We'll dive deeper into the game right here on Game Night on 97.3 ESPN. Josh Hennig hanging out with you. Of course, we are live at the Matt Black Kia Studios. Matt Black Kia, they want to get you approved today. Matt Black Kia, Black Horse Bike, Egg Harbor Township. Visit them online at mattblackkia.com. I didn't want to gloss over the news with the Philadelphia Eagles because the Eagles made a move that I think most people assume was going to happen all along. The re-signing of Richard Rodgers is just a confirmation of what this organization is trying to do. Don't read into it that Zach Ertz is getting traded immediately. Don't read into it that the Eagles are going to a 2 or 3 tight end formation. No, it's a confirmation that this team values depth, because after last year, they realized that they need as much depth as possible because they have any even half the number of injuries they had last year. They are DOA for the 2021 season. They have zero chance of being a competitive team. And I think that the ultimate goal for the Eagles is to be a competitive team. I'm not promising you they win the NFC East, but I'm promising you they want to be a competitive team week in and week out. I think Nick Sirianni is here to make sure of that. Richard Rodgers' role is to be there in case something happens. If Goddard does get hurt, I don't think I want anybody else on the Eagles' recent years who've come in and out as tight ends, whether it's in training camp, preseason, practice squad, than Richard Rodgers. He's reliable. You know exactly what you're getting from him. It's not like you have to wonder, man, is Hakeem Butler actually going to be able to block? Is Kroom going to do anything except for run to the end zone and catch a ball when he's wide open? That's the only play like I had last year. He caught one touchdown, they cut him. It was ridiculous. So I can't rely on guys like that. I mean, remember, what was it, one kid, Ellis, a couple of years ago from Delaware? He was on the practice squad for a couple of years. You're not relying on him. You need reliable players in backup positions. Not every backup position can be a developmental prospect. I think that's part of the reason why they got rid of Jamie Carroll as well. Sorry, Jamie Newman. Newman was let go because I think he was too raw and not developed enough for them to feel like it was worth their time. Sirianni wants competition, right? He keeps preaching competition of fundamentals and technique. Well, you need players to fit that mold, right? And Newman doesn't fit that role. Richard Rodgers does. And whoever is coming in, whether it's Flacco or fill in the blank quarterback, I know that Adam Kaplan yesterday mentioned Nick Mullins as a possible camp arm to bring in here. Whoever comes in the preseason, they got to throw to somebody. Someone's got to play tight end. It's going to be reliable. It might as well be Richard Rodgers. He knows the team. He knows the organization. The organization knows him. And he's played in the West Coast offense for Doug Peterson, Mike McCarthy in Green Bay. And that Mike McCarthy offense is, you could argue, basically a cousin of what Nick Sirianni and Shane Steichen want to do in Philadelphia. You go back and watch the Chargers offenses from 2014 to 2018, the Colts offenses from 2018 to 2020, and then line them up next to what Mike McCarthy was calling in Green Bay. There's not a ton of differences. There's some variations in formations. There's not a ton of differences in terms of the execution of those offenses. So Rodgers just makes way too much sense to not bring back at this point. And I'm glad they did, because I'm a big believer in having veterans on a team too. You want a veteran in every position group. So now you got Rodgers in there, whoever the young tight ends are, assuming Zach Ertz isn't here. You have a guy almost in every position group who is considered a veteran. So as a result, I think that that's a value as well. Game night here on 97.3 ESPN. Josh Hennig hanging out with you. One more thing I want to hit on before we hit the break, and that was, you look around the NFL right now, and it's a real darn shame that we have this huge gap right now between these mini camps and OTAs and the start of the season, because I think the NFL is going to be a little hard pressed to keep themselves in the news without some big, big, big things happening. Because these NBA playoffs have been absolutely wild. I feel like every night is must watch at this point. You just can't escape it. And the ratings tell you that as well. When you're up 50% of what was going on last year, and you're up at minimum 10% to what you were back in 2019 before the bubble, people are watching. People are interested. And by the way, The Sports Center numbers after an NBA playoff game have been almost triple of what they have been on anything else. So when you have a Major League Baseball game, the Women's Softball World Series, the College Baseball World Series, they're watching Sports Center, but not really at the same level as they are at the NBA playoff game. Same thing inside the NBA. They're having great numbers in the post game. People want the NBA right now. People want the analysis. The NBA has done a great job at parlaying the fact that they have all of these stars in the postseason right now. Trae Young, Joel Embiid, Kevin Durant, Kawhi, Donovan Mitchell. I think you consider him a star, right? The league MVP, Nikola Jokic, right? You have all of these names, all of these stars in the postseason. Really, the only guy that's missing at this point is Luka. I think if Luka would have made it to the second round instead of Kawhi, it probably would have been similar to in terms of star power. But Kawhi's Kawhi, and the Clippers are an enigma, and people want to see that as well. I think the NBA is doing a great job this year, and I think that I'm looking forward to where the NBA playoffs play out. And I think that the NFL, they're obviously taking a backseat a little bit because there's really not a lot going on in the NFL. And, when you flip on the television, and I'm somebody who loves watching Good Morning Football, and I'm watching Good Morning Football today, and I only watched for 5 minutes. I flip the channel. I was like, NFL's at the top of mind. I love football. I'm probably the most diehard football people you ever meet. But you know what I'm fascinated with right now? These NBA playoffs. It seems like the public is as well. Josh Hennig here on GameNight on 97.3 ESPN. Speaking of the NBA playoff, Sixers tonight at 7:30 here on 97.3 ESPN. National NBA playoff coverage begins at 7 p.m. ESPN Radio before Tom McGinnis takes over at 7:30 on 97.3 ESPN. We're going to break down more of the game. Kevin McCormick joins us coming up at the other side of this break here on 97.3 ESPN FM. The 97.3 ESPN mobile app, it's free thanks to First Bank of Seattle City. And we are live on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. Just follow 97.3 ESPN and watch the Sports Bash with Mike Gill. Game Night with Josh Hennig. And of course, Billy Schwein in the locker room tomorrow at 10 a.m. 97.3 ESPN.
Josh, can you hear me? I can't hear you. I can't hear you right now. Yeah. I'm confused.
So, but I believe we'll find out. Kevin, give me a thumbs up. You got? Oh wait, we're good now. All right, Kevin McCormick says we're good now, so I'll bring Kevin back up. All right, Kevin. So obviously the NASCAR tire change between me and Gil threw everything off. So hopefully we have no more technical problems moving forward. But with that being said, the Sixers, they do play tonight. So let's get into that right now. First of all, before we get into anything else, one of the things I'm wondering, Kevin, about this game tonight is, and I mentioned this at the top of the show, if you look at the line, it's a -1.5 for the Sixers on the road. That isn't as big a deal to me as the last time I looked at FanDuel Sportsbook. The Sixers were a -110. That means you had to bet $110 to win 100. So that means it's almost a 50-50 proposition between the Sixers and the Hawks. Do you feel like this is a 50-50 series?
Not really. I feel like seeing how the series started, I could see why it's going that way. And although the Sixers improved on the road this season compared to last season, they're still not like a perfect road team. But I would say this series is far from 50-50. If you go back to game one, yes, Atlanta stole the win and it didn't look great, but the Sixers turned the ball over almost 20 times. They left 11 points at the free throw line. Like there was so much had to go wrong, along with everything going so right for Atlanta in the first half for them to steal that win. And then when you look at game two, the starters carried the load pretty much for the entire game. The Sixers didn't score their first bench points until Shake Milton played hero ball at the end of the third quarter. So they have no answer for Joel Embiid, and the Sixers starting lineup continues to impress. And at the end of the day, they still have that elite level defense, and it showed a lot more in game two. So in my opinion, I would say this series isn't exactly 50-50.
So then what number, if I was to press you, what number would you press on it?
I would say somewhere between 60-40 and 70-30.
Okay. So you're not going crazy the other direction. You're just saying it's not 50-50 literally, but you're saying you're giving an edge to the Sixers, not like an intense edge to the Sixers.
Yes, I mean, no discredit to Atlanta. I don't think it's
Right.
that like disrespectful to say that they're not on the same level as the Sixers. They're still a very good team, but they have a lot of depth. They lack a lot of inexperience. I think the experience factor is something that people don't bring up a lot when discussing these two teams. And I think it was extremely apparent at the end of game one when the Sixers really ramped up that full court press and they were trapping on the inbound. That Atlanta team looked rattled. They looked like a team that didn't have any playoff scars. And heading into this postseason, the Sixers finally had those playoff scars from how things went down the bubble last season to the series against Toronto. You go back to the old Boston series. This is a team that is full of playoff veteranship now. And I think that experience factor gives them an added edge that I feel like hasn't been discussed enough when breaking down these two teams.
Kevin McCormick joining us here on Game Night on 97.3 ESPN at Kevin MCC NBA on Twitter, covers the Sixers over at 97.3 ESPN.com and for Sports Illustrated. Kevin, this game tonight obviously is not at home. It's in Atlanta. So the dynamics of the environment are different. But I think with Joel Embiid said something very interesting the other night. Joel said himself, we're better on the road now. We're not the same team that we used to be. And I think he's right. And I think part of it is because people always complain about the coach when they lose, right? But I think where we can give the coaches credit, because it's Doc Rivers, it's Dave Yeager, it's Dan Burke, it's Sam Cassell. You have a loaded coaching staff. I think that it's the maturity of Embiid combined with the new coaching staff has been a big part of them finding their way on the road and becoming better.
Absolutely. I mean, the guys have said all season that accountability is something that Doc Rivers has brought along this season. And along with this great coaching staff, I think the veteran leadership that's in this locker room this season plays a part in that as well. I think having guys like Danny Green, like Dwight Howard, who have been around as long as they have, they understand that the season's a marathon. I think with, the kind of respect that a head coach like Doc Rivers commands, along with having good veterans who keep this team sharp and focused on a day-to-day, has drastically helped them improve, still being able to get up when not playing in their home arena.
Also, when you think the Hawks, and listen, they're not some like famous home team, right? Like they're not some team where, this isn't, the Sixers at home, or let's say, just to throw, I mean, the Milwaukee crowd last night was a little nuts. You could throw them into the conversation, right?
Phoenix,
Utah, Utah's got a great home court. So Atlanta's not on that level. So what is going to be the impact of the Sixers being on the road? Because obviously there has to be some impact.
I feel like the crowd is still going to play a factor in a sense, just because Atlanta's played pretty well at home towards the end of the season as well. And I think part of why all of these playoff crowds have been so crazy is that a lot of these teams that are left are teams that aren't typically around at this point in the year. You look at Atlanta, how long they've been rebuilding, now they're back in the mix. Trae Young's inserting himself into, the upper echelon of superstar talent. And I think the crowd's still going to play a factor. It's a young team, a lot to be excited about. I think the fact that they were able to split in Philadelphia gives them a little bit of added excitement. So I think they're going to try and come in here. They're going to try, mess with Embiid. The same thing that Trae Young had to deal with at MSG. They're going to try and bring that energy, take that home court, because they have a real opportunity here. The fact that they were able to steal one game in Philadelphia essentially kind of gives them home court advantage now. So I think that although they may not have a historic home crowd like a Wells Fargo Center or Phoenix, or like we've seen in other cities this playoffs, I think it's still going to be impactful.
Kevin McCormick joining us here on GameNight on 97.3 ESPN. Check out his coverage over at 97.3 ESPN.com. Follow him on Twitter at Kevin MCC NBA. Sixers Hawks game 3 tonight, 7:30. Tom McGinnis takes over. National ESPN pregame show for Sixers Hawks starts at 7 p.m. right here on 97.3 ESPN. Kevin, I was talking with Dave McMenamin of ESPN yesterday. He brought up the point that last year, the guy who was second MVP was also on the team with the guy who came in second in Defensive Player of the Year. And that team won the NBA championship, that being the Lakers. LeBron was second in the MVP. Anthony Davis second in the Defensive Player of the Year. And he said the Sixers have a special combination with Embiid and Simmons. How do you feel about those comments?
I would say they're true. I'd say that Ben Simmons and Joel Embiid are both generational talents. And as much as people want to say that they don't fit together and they can't coexist, their resume says otherwise. I mean, here they are again in the playoffs, home court advantage as the 1 seed. Embiid would have been the MVP if he didn't miss those games. I think Ben Simmons was robbed of the Defensive Player of the Year award, but that's simply just my opinion as someone who watched him night in and night out. And I also feel that the narrative of that award needs to change. No disrespect to Rudy Gobert, but I would say I agree with those statements. These are two truly special talents. I mean, all-star, all-NBA guys who, if they can continue to put it together, I think can usher in a new era of basketball here in Philadelphia.
Now, you mentioned the fact that people have these opinions about Ben Simmons. I've been saying now, I feel like for a few months now, I feel like the part of the problem with Ben Simmons is it's like a movie. You see a trailer, you get excited. You go to the movie, it doesn't meet your expectations. It doesn't mean the movie was bad. It just didn't meet your expectations. And people have put these expectations on the number 1 overall pick. Fair or not, that's what they do. So I think the problem is people who complain about Ben Simmons, the problem isn't Ben Simmons. The problem is the people's perspective, because they bought into a false movie trailer. They didn't actually watch the guy and judge him for who he is.
Exactly. To judge off that movie trailer reference, it's almost like I do. And it's almost like they made the trailer themselves and then they went and saw the movie, but they didn't end up making the movie. Right. When Ben Simmons was coming up, everyone was, giving them the next LeBron tag and he's going to be this prolific scorer, where Ben Simmons was always more Magic Johnson than LeBron James. Even 4 years later in the NBA, people still watch him and they think, oh, he's going to put it together and be like Giannis. Ben's never going to be like Giannis. He's not wired like Giannis. That's not the way he plays. He likes to elevate the players around him with his playmaking. He likes to set them up. He likes to run the show. He likes to be the guy setting the table, not typically the one finishing it. So I think why people continue to be so frustrated with Ben Simmons is because it's like trying to put the square peg in the round hole. It's just when you continue to set these unrealistic expectations on a guy who's clearly not wired as that type of player, of course you're going to be continually disappointed. The point is, you should watch Ben Simmons, appreciate what he does, appreciate all the other factors of his game that he does at an elite level. Yes, Ben Simmons is not a prolific scorer, but there are so many different areas of the game where when he gets going, is so much fun to watch. I mean, if you go back to game 2, there was a stretch where he had an ugly turnover on one end. He sprints the length of the floor and stops a John Collins lob, and then comes back the other way, the end of the floor, and gets a layup to go. Like, he's just so much fun to watch when he gets going, but people get so caught up in the jump shot and the shot attempts and this and that. It's tiring. I can't believe people are still doing it at this point in his career.
Yeah, and also you won't forget that Magic Johnson had one of the ugliest jump shots in world history. That push shot that he had. If anybody's ever watched like a legit Magic Johnson basketball game from like 79 to like 87, the push shot was the ugliest thing on planet Earth. Like it was ridiculous. So
hey, he got it to go. I will say that.
Well, sometimes he did. Some of those games he started chucking the ball, and you see Pat Riley roaming around the sideline with his hands on his hips. Like, why did he take that shot?
Well, who knows, Josh? Maybe Ben Simmons should be shooting 1 for 8 from 3 in a playoff game, in a deciding game. Apparently, that's what he needs to do if he wants to enter, the upper echelon of NBA star talent. But
yeah,
I don't know.
Him and Giannis can hang out together at that point.
Yeah, maybe he should train with Giannis all summer. Maybe that'll help.
I personally brought up Pat Riley though because I love the tweet that you put out. We talked about this the other day when Daryl Morey got fined. Pat Riley gets fined basically a third of what Morey did. And Pat Riley actually said more than Morey actually said. It's just that Morey's got more attention because it was on social media. I think that's part of the reason why he got fined. I think there's another side of it. And it's a bit of a conspiracy theory. I will give you that. But I think it's very convenient that nobody wanted to vote for Joel Embiid for Rookie of the Year. Remember that whole fiasco? He only got one first place vote in the MVP, which to me is ridiculous. Like, you're telling me only one person thought he should have won the MVP? I mean, okay, so we're giving away MVP awards because Jokic never got injured, never had COVID protocols this year. Okay. Ben Simmons is second place. He is second place to a guy who realistically, Rudy Gobert is a block shot machine. He doesn't even guard more than 1 or 2 positions at a time. I think people just don't like the Sixers. I think the Sixers organization is looked so ill upon by certain segments of the league in terms of media and in terms of the league office that no matter what the Sixers do until they win a championship, nobody is going to respect them. They are the Rodney Dangerfield of the NBA.
Okay, so I would like to put the tinfoil hat on and one up your conspiracy. All right, almost like to build onto it.
Okay.
So, as we know, Adam Silver essentially forced Sam Hinkie to step down from his position because, quote unquote, tanking was bad for the league and it was killing ratings and yada, 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 the whole nine. So my thing is, I don't think they want to hand out these awards to the Joel Embiids and the Ben Simmonses because if they do that, then in hand, they essentially have to admit that the process worked, which they don't want to do because they tried to say it was bad for the league and they're trying to go the whole anti-tanking route.
Interesting. I think I would just clarify with this. I think Adam Silver is a little less cares about the tanking for the Sixers as he cares about the fact that he has his play-in tournament now, and half the teams could have gotten a play-in tournament, didn't try. I think that's a problem in and of itself. I think the tanking problem is going to be fixed by, one, the lottery. They kind of fixed the lottery a little bit, but not enough. But the second thing is, let's be realistic. NBA teams value lottery picks more than some people value clothes. It's ridiculous. Like, they treat lottery picks like gold. And basketball is really the only sport where you can legitimately say a top 10 player should be an impact player in the league. There's no other sport on planet Earth where you can guarantee me a top 10 pick in that draft is going to have an impact. So I think Silver's part of his problem is that no matter what he does, he doesn't want to admit that the NBA was the cause of tanking. It wasn't the Sixers' success. And now they're trying to dig themselves out of it by having, the lottery's got 25% odds. And, we have a play-in tournament. They're trying to create all these scenarios instead of just admitting it's been this way for about 50 years.
Yeah, it's always been a thing. I mean, the Rockets were accused of it back in the 80s when they got Olajuwon. People accused them of losing games on purpose to get the top pick. And
Knicks with Patrick Ewing.
Yeah, the Knicks for 30 years as they've been waiting to slowly reach back into relevance. All right, I shouldn't slander them. They were a 4 seed this year, but you get the point. It's always been around.
The year, man. Come on, some respect.
It's always going to be around, and especially in this era or phase of the NBA that we're in, what people like to call the super team era. If you don't have a super team that can compete with these teams, the best way to kind of combat that is build your team up now so that you get this young talent, so that when these teams are on the back end, you can be the next super team. And in a sport like basketball, like you said, you can get a top 10 pick, and one player can drastically change the trajectory of your team. So why stick around in mediocrity and get beat up by a Lakers or a Bucks or a Nets for 4 to 5 years when you can just kind of hit the reset button, get some nice young talent in there, and potentially be able to be in a better position to compete 5 to 7 years from now than you would have ever been in your current window.
Kevin McCormick joining us here on Game Night on 97.3 ESPN at Kevin MCC NBA on Twitter. Kevin, one more before I let you go. Off the Sixers specifically, on the other side of the Eastern Conference, the Bucks won last night. We should know that the Bucks have now won 2 games. Sorry, they won 1 game by scoring 80-some points. They lost another game by scoring 80-some points. I mean, I understand the Nets going to win this series. I think we all agree on that. But it feels like this Bucks team is just completely deflated, and they're going through the motions. Because as soon as they lost that first game, I was like, they are in trouble, and Budenholzer is getting fired at the end of this year.
Yeah, that game was just ugly. And it's funny because after game 2, when Brooklyn won by what felt like 1,000,000 points, everyone was losing their minds and saying that you need to score at least like 115 points to even have a chance of beating Brooklyn. Then game 3, neither team breaks 90 points like we're watching a playoff game in the 80s. I just thought that was hilarious. But yeah, I don't know. I've said it all year. I really think the key for Milwaukee is playing Giannis extended minutes at the 5. Especially because Brooklyn, even in a series like this, with how small Brooklyn plays, having Brook Lopez out there isn't really giving them that much of an edge. Like, it's not like they're beating them that bad on the glass, or Brook Lopez is having his way in the post. I mean, they're starting Blake Griffin at center, for crying out loud. Why not try and fight fire with fire, get another guard out there, or like a Bryn Forbes or a PJ Tucker or Pat Connaughton that'll give you a little more flexibility on the perimeter to try and combat that firepower. But yeah, I don't know. This series, the hype and all the buildup was there. After those incredible regular season games, it felt like this series was supposed to be this 7-game slaughter of must-watch television, but it has greatly, greatly underwhelmed.
Yeah, I thought this would be a great series. I was out here saying a week ago, this was Optimus Prime versus Megatron, Thanos versus Captain Marvel throwing down. And this has turned out to be more like, more like me and those 2 old guys in front of the nursing home fighting each other. I feel like that's what this Nets Bucks series has turned into. Not
to mention Brooklyn doesn't even have Harden.
Right.
That's the scary part. I mean, they're handling Milwaukee, and they don't have arguably, the guy that pretty much unlocked that offense with his facilitation. So, I mean, it's Brooklyn. It's scary. I will say that.
Yeah, Budenholzer is getting fired, and I feel bad for whoever gets that job because there's going to be so much pressure put on that guy. It's going to be ridiculous.
And Milwaukee's stuck now. They just threw all that big money. They gave Giannis the Supermax. Drew Holiday gets the max extension. Chris Middleton's still locked up for the next 4 years. I mean, they're pretty much locked into what they have right now. So it's pretty much you have to go get a guy who can make this work. But who knows? Maybe they'll bring Jason Kidd back.
That's not happening. Let's not get too ridiculous.
Listen, credit to whoever is in Jason Kidd's circle that's having his name thrown out as a potential candidate for every coaching job that's come up so far. It's extremely impressive.
Well, my favorite part of the Jason Kidd thing is one night it's Damian Lillard wants Jason Kidd and Jason Kidd wants the job. 24 hours later, it's Jason Kidd is removing his name from the candidacy. And I'm just like, wait, so you wanted the job and then you find out what goes into the job. They don't want the job.
Listen, this league, I mean, what else can you do than just throw your hands up?
It truly is. I mean, look, let's be realistic. As long as Milwaukee doesn't hire Van Gundy or D'Antoni, I think they'll be okay. So,
I think so. Listen, Giannis loved Jason Kidd. He cited him as being the guy who unlocked them.
Then hire another former player. Go hire Sam Cassell.
No, don't do that.
Now you're just being selfish.
Yeah, I am being selfish. Sam can't go anywhere.
Would you rather Sam go to Boston or go to Milwaukee?
Ooh, that's tough.
Because he's a candidate in Boston right now.
Can we just say neither? Can we just hide him all season?
I am forcing you.
Can we stash him somewhere in like the Himalayan mountains so nobody finds him or just forgets about him till all the coaching hires are filled up?
Good grief. I'm done with you. Kevin, enjoy the game tonight. Game 3, Sixers Hawks. Follow him on Twitter at Kevin MCC NBA. Have a good night, my friend.
Thanks, Josh. You too.
Josh Hennig here on Game Night on 97.3 ESPN. I mean, I'm asking Kevin a question here. I'm telling him to pick one. He doesn't want to make a choice either way. I'm serious. Sam Cassell is going to be a head coach in this league one day. You want him to go to Boston or go to Milwaukee? Because he's probably not getting the Portland job. And I don't think he wants the Indiana job. That Indiana situation is a dumpster fire right now. So if he had to leave Philadelphia, would you rather him go to the rival Celtics, one of your biggest rivals of the last 60 years, or end up in Milwaukee where he used to play? My answer would be Milwaukee because at least it's sentimental. Josh Hennig here on Game Night on 97.3 ESPN. All right, coming up next, we'll get your thoughts and comments. Text board is open, 609-403-0973. We're also live on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. I see comments on the YouTube stream. We'll get to your guys' thoughts next here on 97.3 ESPN FM. 97.3 ESPN mobile app is free. Thanks to First Bank of CLC. I'm Josh Hennig, and this is Game Night.
It's Sixers playoff basketball tonight on 97.3 ESPN with the voice of the 76ers, Tom McInnes, calling all the exciting Sixers playoff action.
Free ball from the hash marks up and good. Oh, yeah. Shake Philp with a triple.
It's Sixers Hawks Game 3 tonight. Coverage begins at 7:30. Philadelphia 76ers playoff basketball on your radio home of the Sixers in South Jersey. 97.3 ESPN.
Nissan.
The summertime sale is on at Matt Blatt Nissan, and the deals are heating up. Put zero down, pay 0% interest for 60 months, or get $2,500 off MSRP on every 2021 Nissan Murano in stock. Plus, we need your trade. Buried in a current loan or lease, Matt Blatt Nissan wants to get you released so you can drive the all-new loaded SV model 2021 Nissan Rogue. Lease just $299 per month with zero security deposit, plus our fast-track checkout. Bring any vehicle to Matt Blatt Nissan and get top dollar today in Egg Harbor Township, next to Home Depot, or online at mattblattnissan.com.
It's on at Matt Blatt Nissan.
Negative equity will be refinanced into new vehicle. Rate qualifications exist. Not all will qualify. 0% APR finance based on 1667 per thousand borrowed. Offers can be combined. 36 months, 10,000 mile per year lease. Lease selling price $28,590. Call 877-289-6670 or go to mattblattnissan.com for complete details. Offer ends 7/5/21. It's on at Matt Blatt Nissan on the Black Horse Pike, Egg Harbor Township.
Now, more Game Night with Josh Hennig on 97.3 ESPN and the free mobile app.
Josh Hennig here on Game Night on 97.3 ESPN. Of course, as always, my appearance here on Game Night being brought to my friends over at FanDuel Sportsbook. Use the promo code Hennig when you sign up. Get in all the NBA playoff action, including a same-game parlay insurance up to $10 back if your same-game parlay falls one leg short. Again, it's promo code Hennig when you sign up. Yes, same-game parlay are for anyone, new or existing users of FanDuel Sportsbook. The promo code is Hennig. You know, all the NBA playoff action, all NBA postseason long, again, up to $10 back. If your same-game parlay with NBA playoffs does not win, you fall one leg short, you get $10 back. That's promo code Hennig with FanDuel Sportsbook. Must be 21 or to play and present in New Jersey or PA. Of course, same-game parlay, $10 is site credit and will expire in 7 days. Restrictions apply. See sportsbook.fanduel.com for details. Gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER. Bunch of you guys chiming in throughout the show here on 97.3 ESPN. Text board is open, 609-403-0973. 609-403-0973. Also, we are live on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter, where you can watch the show, get to all you guys' comments in the order they came in on my stream. First jump up here to Rodney. Rodney chimed in a little bit early when we were talking with Kevin McCormick. Rodney said, I agree with Kevin. Like I said, game one was a fluke. Sixers were waiting for Triple H, the pedigree tray, ice tray on defense. It's not uncommon for inferior teams to surprise in game one. Here's the thing. I don't know if it's a fluke. I think calling it a fluke is a little aggressive. I would say that the game one was a byproduct of the Sixers coming out flat. I think it was a byproduct of the Sixers not playing well. I think it was a byproduct of the Sixers just not getting the job done for about 15 minutes. They played horrible basketball. But the Hawks still took advantage of the situation. We said it earlier. James Harden goes down in game one, and the Bucks never capitalized. They just kind of hung back, and they were like, all right, well, we got a game plan to stick with. No, you go out there and get the job done. And Trae Young did that in game one, and the Bucks didn't do that in game one of their series. So I think there's something to be said for that. I think there's something to be said for the fact that certain people just have certain perspectives on the games. And to me, I just felt the Sixers definitely lost that. We got Marky215 on YouTube says, if I had to pick, it would be the Bucks for Sam Cassell to go to. Yeah, I mean, also used to play there, be the coach there. It's kind of the same deal. I think the problem is with Sam Cassell is that he needs to go somewhere with a veteran team. He's not, I don't know if he's a rebuild kind of coach. I think he's more of the Chauncey Billups type where he can walk into a situation like Steve Kerr did and elevate them beyond where they were at. Kyle Dubray has a very interesting point. He says, Giannis with Jason Kidd versus Boston and Sam Cassell. I'll take Boston with Cassell. Why I've seen Jason Kidd turn over into MVP, never seen Cassell do that. Here's the problem with the Jason Kidd thing. First of all, Kidd's not going back to Milwaukee. If he goes back to Milwaukee, I would be shocked. I just don't think Sam Cassell's going to Boston either. I wouldn't be surprised if Brett Brown ends up in Boston or Indiana, honestly. We have a comment over on 97.3 ESPN 609-403-0973 on the text board. Glenn from EHT says Ben Simmons such a limited skill set on offense, calling him a transcendent for generational talent is just not warranted. He's a good player. And nothing wrong with being a good player. Seems like he's not trying to take his game to a great level. I think that we had different definitions of things. I didn't call him a transcendent player. I think he is a generational talent. I think Glenn, the problem with Ben Simmons is that you just don't value his defense as much as other people do. You're only focused on the limited offensive skill set. You're not focusing on the other things he does. But that's a bit of debate for another time. We're running out of time on this show. Thanks, Kevin McCormick, joining us here on Game Night. We got everything figured out with technical problems at the beginning of the show. I'll be back tomorrow after Billy Show in the locker room right here on 97.3 ESPN.
Tomorrow on Major League Baseball on ESPN Radio.
There it goes! Tatis, left field, forget it! A massive home run to tie it at 6.
Fernando Tatis Jr. leads the San Diego Padres into Queens, New York to face the National League East leading Mets.
Deep right field on its way. Gone! Lindor with the home run.
The Padres and Mets. Coverage begins tomorrow at 3:30 Eastern.
Listen to Major League Baseball on 97.3 ESPN.